Chapter 4. Beneath the Silver Veil. The forest breathed. Damp air clung to the edges of Hollow Ridge, where the pines stood tall as cathedrals and the soil drank moonlight. Clouds drifted low, heavy and swollen with rain. Somewhere in that whispering dark, where branches sighed and the wind hummed in secret tongues, the world felt ancient, older than memory, older than sorrow. And in the midst of that stillness, a wolf ran. Not a creature of mindless instinct, but one bound by a deeper ache, by longing he couldn't name, by guilt he couldn't outrun. His fur was storm gray, laced with veins of silver that shimmered when the moonlight kissed them. His eyes burned gold, wild and knowing, too human for the beast he wore. Izek. Each stride thundered through the ground, scattering leaves, carrying with it the ache that had been festering in his chest since the day Mira arrived. He didn't run for hunger. He ran from himself, from the memory of her voice, soft and uncertain, from the way Abir had laughed that day by the garage, muddy and free, from the look Mira gave him before she turned away, a look that said, "I see you," even though she didn't know how much that meant. He ran because the wolf inside him wanted what the man couldn't have. The forest knew it. It whispered it in the trembling leaves, "You want her." And that truth was the most dangerous of all. But what Izek didn't know was that Mira hadn't been asleep that night. The wind had been restless, brushing against the windows like fingertips. Abir had been dreaming beside her, small fists curled beneath his chin, his breathing steady. Mira had lain awake, that strange tug again, that sense that something vast and unseen was calling her from the dark. When the howl came, long and mournful, it pierced her bones. She went to the window before she even thought to stop herself. The forest beyond her small yard swayed under the weight of the moonlight. And there, between the black ribs of the trees, something moved. Something shifting. Her breath hitched. She should have looked away, should have convinced herself it was a dream, but she didn't. Because she saw him. Just for an instant, skin glimmering as it split into fur, muscles twisting, bones reshaping beneath moonlight that seemed almost holy. And before the transformation completed, before the wolf took over entirely, she saw his face. Izek. Raw, beautiful, terrifying. Then he was gone, swallowed by the forest. And when the silence returned, Mira couldn't breathe. By morning, the rain had washed the scent of the night away, but not what she'd seen. The sky was soft gold, the kind that made the world look half forgiven. The air was sharp with damp earth and gasoline when she pulled up outside the small garage near the edge of town. She sat in the car for a long time before getting out, her hands trembling faintly against the steering wheel. She wasn't sure what she was doing, only that she couldn't not see him. He was there, bent over an engine, sleeves rolled to his elbows, grease marking the curve of his forearm. His hair fell into his eyes. He looked achingly human. And that somehow made it worse. Her heart hammered as she stepped closer. Izek. He looked up sharply, surprise flickering before it softened. Mira, everything okay with the car? Her throat felt dry. I didn't come for the car. Something in his gaze changed, a flicker of wariness, like a predator sensing a trap. He straightened slowly, the rag in his hand stilled. Then what? I saw you, she blurted, her voice barely above a whisper but cutting through the hum of the shop. He froze. Rain ticked against the roof. Somewhere, a wrench clattered to the floor. I saw you, she said again, softer now. Last night in the woods. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at her jaw tight, eyes unreadable. Then, with a quiet exhale, he turned away and shut the hood of the car with more force than necessary. You shouldn't have been out there. That's all you have to say, she whispered. You turn into a wolf under the moon, and I'm the one who shouldn't have been there. He flinched just slightly. You don't understand what you saw. Then make me understand, she said. Because I can't unsee it, Izek. I can't just pretend this is a normal. He looked at her then, really looked, the mask slipping for the briefest moment. His eyes weren't just amber, they were alive, burning. You shouldn't be near me, he said finally. His voice was low, almost a growl. It's not safe. Not for you, not for your son. Why? She asked, stepping closer before she could stop herself. Because you think you're dangerous, or because you're afraid I'll see you as a monster. His breath hitched. She saw it, felt it. He was so close she could smell the faint mix of oil, pine, and something deeper beneath it, something wild. Both, he whispered. The word landed like a confession. Myra's pulse quickened. She should have stepped back, but she didn't. Something in the space between them felt like gravity pulling magnetic. Her fingers brushed the edge of the workbench beside him, her knuckles grazing his. The contact sent a shiver through her arm. I don't know what you are, she said softly, but I know you're not a monster, not to me. His jaw tightened. That's exactly what makes it dangerous, he said quietly. He stepped back then, just enough to break the pull between them. But his gaze lingered, the tension still thrumming like a live wire. Izek, she said again, voice trembling, why do you keep pushing me away? He swallowed hard. His throat moved, his eyes flicking briefly to her lips before darting away. Because if I don't, I won't stop. The words hit her like thunder. He turned before she could answer, walking deeper into the dim light of the garage, into shadow. And yet, even from across the space, she could feel the echo of him, his heartbeat somehow tangled with hers. That night, Mira lay awake long after Abir had fallen asleep. The sound of rain whispered against the glass, soft and endless. But all she could think of was the way Izek's voice had broken when he said he was dangerous. How the look in his eyes hadn't been fear of her, but fear for her. And when the wind brushed through the trees again, carrying with it the faintest echo of a howl, Mira didn't feel afraid. She felt something else entirely, something that reached deeper than reason, deeper than fear. Something that felt like recognition. Because monsters don't look at you like that. Men do. Izek's POV. Mira. Even her name felt like a whisper that shouldn't be spoken out loud. He'd told himself not to look at her, not to notice the way her heartbeat quickened when she said his name, not to memorize the way her lips trembled when she was angry or afraid. But the wolf inside him had no discipline. It lived through instinct, through scent and sound and rage. And she had become all of those things to him. When she walked away from the garage, the air felt colder, the silence heavier. Izek leaned against the hood of the car she'd touched, his hands trembling faintly. He could still feel the brush of her skin against his, that accidental graze that burned hotter than fire. He'd buried family, bled beneath the full moon, but nothing had undone him like that. He shut his eyes and inhaled. Her scent was still there, soft, floral, threaded with rain and warmth. It twisted through his chest, through his veins, until the man and the wolf inside him blurred. He couldn't tell where one ended and the other began anymore. He left the garage when the light died, walking toward the forest at the edge of town. The world was damp and silver, the air thick with the scent of pine. He needed distance, needed the trees, the cold, the silence. But the moment he stepped into the clearing, the wolf stirred. The moon wasn't full, but it was close enough to pull at him, to whisper in that ancient, wordless tongue only his kind could feel. And she was there, in every thought, in every shadow. Myra's face, the way she'd said, "I saw you." No fear, just wonder. He'd seen that look once before in someone else long ago. It had ended in blood. You shouldn't have been near her. The thought echoed like a snarl. You know what happens when humans get too close. He dropped to his knees in the damp grass, hands curling into fists. The wolf inside him pressed against his skin, restless and wanting. She doesn't belong in your world, he murmured to himself. She has a son, she deserves peace. But even as he said it, a vision flashed in his mind, Mira laughing, Abir's small hand clutching hers, sunlight catching in her hair. A warmth he hadn't felt in years, a warmth he'd thought was gone forever. The kind that made the ache inside him unbearable. Later that night, Nova's scent reached him before her voice did, sharp, like pine smoke and iron. "You're getting reckless," she said, stepping out from between the trees. Her wolf form shimmered just beneath the surface, green eyes glinting in the half-light. "I can smell her on you." Izek didn't answer. He sat on a fallen log, elbows on his knees, rainwater dripping from his hair. Nova crouched in front of him. "Izek, you can't." "I know," he said too quietly. "Then stop before you destroy yourself." Her tone softened. "You think I don't see it? The way you look at her like she's the last bit of sunlight left in the world." He met her gaze. Maybe she is. He didn't need reminding. He still saw the faces sometimes, those who tried to love wolves, only to be torn apart by the curse that bound them to the moon. Love for their kind always came with blood. That night, Izek stayed awake. The forest was quiet except for the rain dripping from leaves. The wolf paced, restless. Every instinct screamed at him to stay away from her, but the part of him that remembered being human, that remembered gentleness, couldn't let her go. She looked at him today with something he hadn't seen in years, not fear, not disgust, curiosity, compassion. And that was more dangerous than any silver bullet. He imagined her asleep in her little house, her son curled up beside her. The thought made something fierce and protective rise in him, a vow, silent and ancient. "Nothing will touch her while I breathe." The vow burned like fire in his chest. It was both promise and punishment. Because he knew, deep down, that the more he protected her, the closer he'd come to destroying them both. When the first light of dawn crept through the trees, Izek finally shifted. The pain was brief, a familiar tearing, bones twisting, fur disappearing like smoke across his skin. The wolf stretched, shaking the dew from his coat. And then, in the silence of the morning, he lifted his head toward the town, toward her. It was longing. It was warning. And somewhere, behind closed curtains, Mira stirred in her sleep, her heart beating faster, as if she'd heard him in her dreams. Chapter 5, Sparks in the Rain. The storm passed that night, but it left something behind, an ache that neither of them could name. For days afterward, Ravenshade seemed caught between seasons. The air stayed damp, heavy with the scent of pine and wet earth. Mist clung to the fields at dawn, curling around rooftops like smoke. Mira found herself waking early, standing at her window with a mug of coffee, eyes drifting toward the forest that framed her street, toward his side of it. She told herself it was nothing, that she was only curious, that the strange quiet she felt wasn't loneliness but adjustment. Yet, whenever she caught the faint sound of a motorcycle on the distant road, or saw a tall figure at the edge of town, her heart would stutter like something waking inside her. Aber noticed it too, in his small way. "Mommy," he said one morning, his voice sticky with sleep as he leaned over his cereal bowl. "Mr. Izek waved at me when I was at school yesterday." Mira's spoon paused midair. "He did." Aber's eyes gleamed with pride. "He fixed the playground swing. It was broken and now it goes super high." Mira smiled faintly. She could almost picture it, Izek crouched beside the swing set, sleeves rolled up, helping the teacher without a word. She wondered what it had felt like for him to do something so simple and ordinary. Maybe a part of him wanted that life, too, quiet, unthreatening, human. That evening, as she walked home from the store, the fog had thickened again. The road glistened under street lamps, and her breath came out in small white clouds. She pulled her scarf tighter, balancing a paper bag of groceries in her arms, Abir's hand in the other hand. She didn't notice the sound of footsteps until she heard the low, familiar voice behind her. "You should carry a flashlight at night." Mira turned, startled, then relaxed when she saw him. Izek stood a few paces away, hands in his jacket pockets, hair still damp as though he'd just come from the rain. There was always something unguarded about him in the mist, as if the fog itself softened his edges. "You scared me," she said, her pulse still racing. His brow furrowed. "Didn't mean to." "It's okay," she said, smiling faintly. "I'm just jumpy." He stepped closer, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. "You shouldn't walk home alone in weather like this. The road's slick, and the fog can trick your sense of distance." Mira tilted her head, a teasing note in her voice. Is that local advice or wolf advice? For a second, his lips twitched, the hint of a smile ghosting across his face. Maybe both. They fell into step together, the night wrapping around them like a secret. He carried her grocery bag without asking, his large hand steady against the paper. The simple gesture made her chest ache in a way she didn't expect. You don't talk much, she said after a while. I talk when there's something worth saying, he replied. Most people fill silence because they're afraid of it. Are you afraid of silence? No, his voice was low, almost thoughtful. Silence doesn't lie. The answer lingered between them. She watched his profile in the mist, the strong lines softened by fog, the glint of his eyes when he glanced at her. There was something magnetic in the quiet between their words, like gravity pulling them toward the same unseen point. When they reached her porch, he handed her the bag gently. You should rest. Long days make the walls feel smaller. She looked at him for a long moment. You sound like someone who knows. I do. He turned to leave, but before she could stop herself, she said softly, Would you like some tea, just to warm up? He hesitated, eyes flicking briefly to hers, unreadable, conflicted. Then he nodded once. Inside, the air smelled of chamomile and candle wax. Abir's toys were scattered on the rug, his small sneakers by the stairs. The domestic mess should have felt ordinary, but with Izek standing there, tall, quiet, too careful, it felt charged, intimate in a way that made her heart thrum. Mira busied herself in the kitchen, trying not to notice how close he stood. The kettle hissed softly, filling the silence. You live alone? He asked. With Abir, yes. He nodded slowly. He seems happy. He is. He's stronger than me sometimes. Something softened in his face then, something that almost looked like longing. He reminds me of my sister, he said quietly, when we were young. Mira turned, surprised. You have a sister. Had. His gaze dropped to the steam curling from his mug. She died a long time ago. The simplicity of it cut through her chest. I'm sorry. He didn't answer, just nodded once, as if the words weren't for pity but acknowledgement. They sat across from each other at the small wooden table, the only sound the faint patter of rain against the window. Mira studied him. His hands, rough, scarred, didn't fit the gentle way he held the cup. His shoulders looked like they'd carried too much weight for too long. She wanted to ask what broke him, but instead she said quietly, You don't have to be alone all the time. He looked up, eyes locking on hers. For a heartbeat, she forgot how to breathe. I'm used to it, he said finally. That doesn't mean you want it. Their gazes held, neither backing away this time. The air felt thick, pulsing with something unspoken. When he finally set the cup down, his fingers brushed hers, light, accidental, yet electric. Mira froze. The touch was fleeting, but it burned like the first spark before a fire. Izek seemed to feel it too, his breath caught, his jaw tightening as he withdrew his hand slowly. Good night, Mira, he said softly, his voice rougher now. Get some sleep. She wanted to tell him to stay, that she wasn't afraid, that his presence made the house feel alive in a way it hadn't since she moved in, but all she could do was nod. When the door closed behind him, she pressed her palm to where his fingers had touched, her heartbeat wild and unsteady. Outside, through the curtains, she watched him walk back into the mist. His shadow melted into the fog, until only the echo of his footsteps remained, steady, fading, but never truly gone. And for the first time in years, Mira lay awake not out of fear, but because her heart refused to rest. Ravenshade had its own rhythm after a storm, soft, almost reluctant. The clouds broke apart in slow, gray ribbons, and sunlight seeped through like it had to earn the right. For days, the town seemed quieter, though Mira's world had grown louder in the strangest way. She found herself noticing everything that reminded her of Izek. The scent of wet pine when she stepped outside, the growl of engines in the distance, even the color of the sky before rain, that deep, aching silver. And she saw him often, too often to be coincidence. Once at the market, when she reached for a carton of milk only for a larger, rougher hand to take it first, his. He'd smiled faintly and handed it to her, muttering, "You shop like you're preparing for an apocalypse." Another time, when Abir's soccer ball rolled across the road, it was Izek who caught it mid-bounce, his reflexes too fast, too sharp. He'd crouched down to Abir's level and said softly, "Careful with that. Not everything that moves in this town stops when you ask it to." Abir had giggled and said, "You sound like Mommy," which earned a rare, startled laugh from Izek, the kind of laugh that cracked through his usual quiet like sunlight through storm clouds. And somehow, those moments turned into something more. It started with the fence. One late afternoon, Mira was in her backyard when she noticed one of the wooden posts leaning dangerously. The wind had probably done it, or maybe time itself. She grabbed a hammer and went to work, though work mostly consisted of hitting nails sideways and muttering curses under her breath. "You're scaring the fence," came a voice from behind her. She turned sharply, half startled, half smiling. "I swear you appear out of fog, Izek." He leaned against the back gate, arms crossed, that faint ghost of a grin on his face. "You look like you're about to pick a fight with that plank." "I'm perfectly capable of fixing it," she said, setting her jaw, though the hammer immediately slipped from her hand and landed in the grass. He arched an eyebrow. "Perfectly capable, huh?" She sighed. "Okay, maybe moderately capable." He stepped forward, crouched, and examined the broken post. The closeness of him, the warmth of his body even in the cool afternoon, made something flutter in her stomach. "You need a new nail," he murmured, glancing up at her. "Or maybe just a new fence." "You offering?" she asked lightly. His lips twitched. "Maybe." For the next hour, they worked side by side, mostly him fixing things and her handing him tools she barely knew the names of. He didn't complain. He didn't even tease her much, except when she mixed up the wrench and the screwdriver. "I'm a software engineer," she said defensively. "Which explains why you tried rebooting the fence," he replied, straight-faced. She stared at him, then laughed. "You made a joke." His eyes flicked to hers. "I do that sometimes." The sound of her laughter seemed to linger in the air longer than it should. By the time the last nail was in, the sun had dipped low, painting the world in copper light. She brushed her hands together, looking at his work. "You're good at this." He shrugged. "I fix things, it's what I do." Her gaze softened. "Do you fix people too?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He froze, hammer still in his hand, the orange light catching in his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "People aren't made to be fixed." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, just thick, full. Like the air itself didn't want to let the moment go. Then she noticed something else. The way the sunlight hit his face made him look even younger, which suddenly sparked a thought she hadn't considered before. She turned to him, narrowing her eyes. "Wait, how old are you?" He looked caught off guard. "Why?" "Because you look," she hesitated, searching for the right word. "Like you could still be in school. Please don't tell me I've been sharing tea and fences with a minor." He blinked and then, for the first time since she'd met him, laughed. It wasn't just a smile, not the quiet kind he usually gave, but a real laugh that came from deep in his chest, soft and rough and warm. "Relax," he said, still grinning. "I'm 19. Mira froze. 19. He nodded, watching her reaction, amusement glinting in his eyes. "Oh my God," she groaned, pressing a hand over her face. "I'm 26. I could practically be your babysitter." He tilted his head, still smiling. "Do you usually invite your babysitters in for tea?" She glared at him through her fingers, cheeks burning. "I walked right into that one." "You did," he said, voice low, teasing now. She shook her head, trying not to smile, but it was useless. "I feel ridiculous." "Don't," he said softly, the playfulness fatting into something gentler. "Age doesn't matter much here, Mira, not to people like me." The way he said it made her chest tighten again, a quiet reminder of the truth she kept trying to forget. He wasn't just a boy in a small town. He was something else entirely. Still, as the light faded and they stood there beside the repaired fence, it didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice small, "for helping and for making me laugh." He looked at her for a long time. "You should do that more." "What?" "Laugh, it looks good on you." For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. Then she smiled, looking down. "You say that to all your neighbors." "Just the ones who can't tell a hammer from a screwdriver." She laughed again, quiet and genuine. As he turned to leave, she found herself speaking before she could think. "Hey, Izek." He paused at the gate. "I make good coffee," she said, a hint of challenge in her voice. "Maybe next time you fix something, I'll return the favor." He gave that almost smile again, the one that didn't quite reach his eyes but still made her heart skip. "Careful, I might start breaking things on purpose." "Don't you dare," she said, but her grin betrayed her. He walked away then, his figure melting into the fading light, and for the first time in months, Mira felt her chest fill with something other than ache. It wasn't just attraction, it wasn't fear. It was the quiet beginning of something that felt like belonging. The rain had a rhythm in raven shade, soft, insistent, and full of secrets. It came and went like a visitor who knew the roads too well. Mira had started to like it, the hush it brought, the way the world seemed smaller and quieter, the way it gave her space to think. She hadn't seen Izek for 3 days. Not since that afternoon by the lake when she had caught him watching her reflection in the water instead of the sunset. Not since that almost touch, when his hand had brushed hers and something electric had passed between them, something that shouldn't have existed. But Ravenshade had a way of drawing people together, even when they tried to stay apart. It was late afternoon when she saw him again. The rain had just stopped, the air sharp and cool, the earth smelling of pine and wet bark. Mira was on her way back from town, her arms full of groceries and her mind full of ordinary thoughts, dinner, Abir's school project, the heater that kept breaking down. Then she saw him leaning against the wooden fence that bordered the path to her cottage. He looked like a painting that didn't belong in this century. The black jacket, damp from the drizzle, clung to his shoulders. His dark hair was pushed back, still dripping rain. He had that same quiet focus, as though the rest of the world existed on a different frequency. Mira slowed, trying not to smile. "You again," she said. Izek's mouth curved slightly. "You sound disappointed." "Should I be?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. He tilted his head, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "Depends who you ask." They started walking toward her cottage together. Mira didn't remember inviting him to, but it felt natural, like this had happened before, like they'd always walked this road side by side. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It pulsed with unspoken thoughts. At the gate, he reached out to open it for her. His hand brushed hers again, that spark. She tried to pretend it didn't make her heart jump. "Thank you," she said, a little too quickly. He looked at her, eyes soft but unreadable. "You always say that like you don't need it." "Need what?" "Help," he said simply. Mira blinked, caught off guard. "Maybe I don't." He smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Maybe you do, Mira." Her name and his voice did something to her. It sounded different, heavier, like it belonged to a memory she hadn't lived yet. Inside, Abir's laughter came from the living room. Izek's gaze softened. "He's happy," he said quietly. "Yeah," Mira murmured, watching her son through the open door. "He likes it here, it feels safe." Something flickered in Izek's expression, a shadow too fleeting to name. "That's good," he said, but his tone carried something unspoken. "Dinner," she offered, trying to shift the weight of the moment. He nodded, stepping inside. The cottage filled with the scent of garlic, butter, and herbs, the comforting kind that wrapped around the old walls like a promise. Mira moved through the small kitchen, sleeves rolled up, the soft crackle of the pan echoing against the quiet hum of the forest outside. She could feel Izek's presence before she saw him, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, the low golden light catching the sharp lines of his face. Too close, but not close enough. Every time she turned to reach for something, She caught his gaze, steady, unflinching, following her like a shadow that refused to let go. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" she asked, pretending to focus on stirring the sauce, her voice a little softer than she meant it to be. He didn't hesitate. "Because you look different here, happier than in town." She laughed under her breath, the sound light but tired. "That's because people in town don't stare at me like I'm about to disappear." Izek's voice dropped lower, almost a growl wrapped in tenderness. "You won't, not while I'm here." The words shouldn't have mattered. They shouldn't have sent warmth rushing through her chest, shouldn't have made her fingers tremble as she set the spoon down. But they did. And when she finally turned to look at him, really look, she saw it in his eyes. The storm he tried so hard to hide. The scent of dinner thickened in the air, caramelized onions, roasted chicken, and freshly baked bread brushed with olive oil and rosemary. Mira's favorite. Creamy mushroom pasta, rich with garlic and pepper, a dish she made whenever the world felt too heavy. The kind that tasted like home, or what she imagined home should feel like. She plated the food quietly, sliding one across the table toward him. "It's nothing fancy," she murmured. Izek sat down, the chair creaking under his weight. He took one bite, then another, slower this time, his amber eyes lifting to hers. "You made this before," he said, voice low, thoughtful. "All the time, it's my go-to meal of comfort." He nodded, a faint curve on his lips. "I remember good food, but this," he gestured with his fork, "this one, it's dangerous, makes me forget the war outside that door." Mira laughed softly, the tension in her chest easing. "Then maybe I'll make it more often." He looked at her, eyes warm but shadowed. "You'd better, because if this is what home tastes like," he paused, the faintest smirk pulling at his mouth, "I might never leave." When she handed him the cup of tea after the meal, their fingers brushed again, longer this time, neither of them pulling away. The moment stretched. Mira felt her pulse quicken, her breath stumble. She set her own cup down quickly and forced a teasing smile. "So, tell me something, Izek." "What?" "Anything." Between sips, Izek's gaze drifted, not at Mira, but somewhere far away. "My mother used to cook like this," he said quietly, almost as if speaking to the steam rising from his cup. "She'd hum while stirring the pot. My father would sneak tastes and pretend she didn't notice. And my sister, she'd always steal the first piece before it even hit the table." A small, wistful smile touched his lips, breaking the usual hardness of his face. "We were happy, before everything changed." The silence that followed felt fragile. Mira, sensing the weight of his memories, smiled softly and said, "Well, if you ever want to recreate that, I'll let you steal the first bite too, but only if you promise not to hum." Izek let out a low chuckle, the sound warm and rough. "Deal," he said. And for the first time that night, the heaviness in the air gave way to something softer, like the brief calm between storms. The clock ticked between them. Outside, the rain began again, tapping gently against the window. They didn't speak for a while. The silence wasn't empty, it hummed. When Abir's laughter echoed again, Mira smiled faintly. "You really shouldn't stay too long. People might start talking." "Let them," Izek said quietly. "I'm not here for them." She looked up, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't know if she should step back or closer. The days after that conversation settled into something Mira couldn't quite define. Not friendship, not distance either. It was something that lived between the quiet moments, in the pauses of a conversation, in the spaces their hands almost touched, in the air that shifted when he entered a room. Izek had started helping her more around the cottage, fixing the fence, bringing in wood for the fire, repairing the old heater that had given up hope years ago. He never said much while working, but his presence filled the silence, grounding, steady, strange in how natural it felt. Mira often caught herself watching him from the kitchen window, sleeves rolled up, eyes fixed on his task with that unnerving focus of his. The sunlight caught in his dark hair, made his skin glow faintly golden. And she would tell herself she wasn't starring. She absolutely was. It was late afternoon when she made tea again, out of habit now. The kettle whistled softly as Izek stepped inside, brushing off rain. You're becoming a regular, Mira said, handing him a towel. I could say the same about your tea, he replied, drying his hair. She smiled, leaning against the counter. I should start charging you. He looked up at her, eyes glinting. You'd overcharge. Probably. The air between them softened with quiet laughter. When she reached out to take the towel back, his hand caught hers by accident, maybe, but neither of them let go right away. Her breath stilled. His thumb brushed her knuckle once before he pulled away. Mira turned, pretending to busy herself with the mugs. Izek leaned against the counter, arms crossed, that familiar half-smile tugging at his lips. Come to my place this Sunday, he said suddenly. She glanced over her shoulder. Your place? Why? Is there something special? He shrugged, pretending nonchalance, but his tone carried warmth. Nothing special. Just thought you should meet the pack properly, hang out a bit. Besides, his mouth curved into a grin, I figured it's about time I cook for you, or at least try to. Mira laughed, drying her hands on a towel. That sounds dangerous. Should I bring a fire extinguisher? Izek's eyes glinted, golden in the dim light. You might need it, he murmured, but I promise it'll be worth it.